Okay, the video will be next. This video tonight is very interesting. So if you can stay awake, pay attention. This is cool. I watched this and I thought, wow, this is cool, kind of cool. I know these videos were made a couple of years ago, but this is interesting.
Welcome to In Grace. We've got a great show for you today. We're talking about the Copper Scroll and treasure unimaginable. Ever since I was a boy, I've been fascinated with God's creation. I'm traveling the planet to tell His story about His world. I'm Jim Scudder Jr. Come with me on another exciting adventure in grace. Last time our adventure began with a simple Facebook message. That short message opened my eyes to the possibility that an incredible hoard of gold, silver, and temple treasure, the ephod of the high priest, and even the Ark of the Covenant may be buried at a place that I've walked over dozens of times, Qumran. The more I read, the more it seemed that this might actually be true. We flew out to Washington, D.C. to find out more from author Shelley Nease at the impressive Museum of the Bible. Shelley had written The Copper Scroll Project, a book of adventure and intrigue. The main character? A retired fire investigator from Oklahoma named Jim Barfield. After talking to Shelley and finding out more about the Copper Scroll, I knew that we needed to talk to Jim Barfield himself to hear the story right from the source. The film crew and I wasted no time and flew out to Texas because if true, the Copper Scroll treasure will be the greatest discovery of all history. Hey, here we are. Eagle Mountain Park in Central Texas. Kind of a pretty place. We're not here to see the beauty, we're here to see Jim Barfield, and we're gonna get the scoop on the treasure of the Copper Scroll. Jim Barfield.
Yes, sir.
Great to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
Appreciate you telling us your story, and it's quite a story.
Well, thank you, and if I am correct, it's gonna have an impact on every single person on this planet. I think it's something God has put in my heart. I'm positive of that. Now I got to convince other people. But it's such an amazing thing that a guy from Oklahoma, a retired fireman, would figure it out. And the story of how I figured it out is just incredible. And it didn't take me very long at all. For example, at the steps heading east 40 cubits, I looked at my map that I had laying beside me because I studied the Dead Sea Scrolls all the time.
And this is location 1.
Location 1. Yeah. Pulled my map over and I looked at it. I said, I need some steps heading east. And I go, oh, right there.
A map of Qumran.
Map of Qumran.
And so you find one set of stairs
heading east. The only set of steps at Qumran that head east.
A light bulb going on. You're like, well, that was way too easy.
It's got to be 40 cubits long. So I go online, and I found a document written by Yuval Peleg and Yitzhak Magen, the two men that I
excavated there at Qumran.
Yeah, they were the experts on that place. Those set of steps, it's a pool actually, right there with the measurement on it. I think it was 19.5 meters. I did the math, 19.2 inches to the cubit. I did the calculation, 40 cubits long.
Wow.
And I thought, coincidence. That's highly possible.
Well, it's possible.
Yeah, it's highly possible. So I thought, okay, well, that's kind of neat. But then I read, and just a few minutes later, I found the second location. Identified it very easily. And I thought, nah, this is crazy. So I did the third location, which was the cave. And I thought, okay, I got to find a cave. It's got to be, and I did. I got an aerial photograph of Qumran. I had the exact map or picture that I needed. And I looked at the north end of that hill, just exactly as it tells you to do, and there was a spot that looked like it could have a cave. I hit it on the first go around. Now we've got 3 locations. I didn't realize this until months later. Matter of fact, it was the very end of my examination of the scroll. Those 3 locations are in a perfectly straight line, and it ends with the cave. The last 5 locations in a perfectly straight line, and it ends with the cave. Coincidence? No. No. Those guys, whoever they were saying, Jimmy, follow the yellow brick road.
Isn't that what you did, though, when you were investigating a fire, looking for arson or looking for the cause of a fire? Is you're kind of tracing everything back to a single point.
Yeah, point of origin, yeah.
And this is very similar.
It is. You follow the clues as they go, the burn patterns. There's going to be more charring, more burn pattern. The depth of the burn, if it's on a floor, say, is going to be deeper than around it. So all you got to do is follow the patterns. Well, that's what I did with the copper scroll, follow the patterns. And it worked incredibly well, because within 20 minutes, I could tell you where the first 5 locations were at.
If this was kind of so simple, and it's just kind of right there, and everyone's looking everywhere else,
Right.
How did they miss it?
1952 is when the copper scroll was found. They've been looking at it since then, and they've been trying to figure it out. And you know what I think it is? With no disrespect to the guys that have been trying in the past, they tried to make it far more complicated than what it is. And my wife always laughs at me, because the truth of the matter is, I normally don't follow instructions, whether it's a swing set or whatever, but this one I did. It says, under the ruins in the Valley of Achor. Okay, I got to find a set of ruins where all these things are at. That's what I assumed. And I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and try it. I'll find one set of ruins, and if that set of ruins doesn't match the copper scroll, I'll go to the next.
This is your first foray into anything like this. I mean, you hadn't even been to Israel,
Never,
and you're
yeah.
researching all of this by online or maps and charts and things from
Yes.
your house in Lawton, Oklahoma.
in Oklahoma. Actually,
This is,
Apache,
you
Oklahoma.
can't make
Yeah.
this story up.
It was bizarre. And what I did, I had a map of Qumran laying on my desk the morning that I decided to do this. It was like 21 December of 2006, right in the middle of Hanukkah. I'd met a wonderful man by the name of Bendel Jones. He got me excited about the copper scroll. I'd read it before. I didn't want anything to do with it. It was a dry, boring list of gold, silver, and articles. Wasn't interested. But that morning I got up and I thought, I was an investigator. Let me apply some investigative skills to it.
And you
see
had
what happens.
retired, so you had some time.
Yes.
That kind of curiosity, he encouraged you to look at it. You did. Now that has taken you on quite a journey.
And huge
Many
journey.
airplane trips. You're meeting pretty amazing people. You have major production companies wanting to talk to you and tell your story. So, did you ever imagine what it would become?
I imagined that I'd go over there, take my research, because it's really convincing. For example, the head of the Antiquities Authority. I'd show it to them and they'd say, okay, well, let's go dig.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't happen.
There are some people that believe God just kind of opens and closes doors, and I certainly do. But I think God also is expecting us to walk through. And you seem like you have done your part, and every chance you get, you're advancing the cause. But I mean, obviously, there's still a time when there's no more you can do, and you just have to say, okay, Lord, now it's your turn to do something.
Yeah, and it happens from one day to the next. It can be really exciting and a big downfall, really exciting. It's really like the roller coaster ride. It really is like that. And as far as, I'm always pushing, because when I stand in front of God, He's going to examine me for what I did with this Copper Scroll project. I want Him to say, buddy, you are hard to hold back. I want Him to know that I'm trying my very best. I'm always willing. Any time of the night or day, I will go. If He says go, I'm going. And my buddy Chris Knight, he's going with me. We work together as a team, and he is as motivated as I am.
It's been tough. I mean, we go over there, and literally without any guidance, we're just going. Jim is like a bull. He gets focused and he goes. And I know why God chose him to do that. And so Over the years of doing the project, we have been through, I can't tell you how many obstacles, especially with people, with situations, dealing with the IAA, dealing with the archaeologists, getting frustrated on whether, when is this going to happen? Is the stuff really there? And, it's had its up and downs, but God has always been faithful that when there's a down, he always comes back and re-encourages us that we're on the right track, that there's something going on here.
I'm almost going back in time.
Well,
what would it have been like when they were doing this? What was happening at that time?
Let me give you a peek into what was happening with them now. When these guys were writing this, Qumran, and I'm sure of this, now the archaeologists and the historians are going to argue with me. I don't care. Let them argue. This was being done after Qumran had been attacked. The priests at Qumran, because I believe Qumran was the home of priests, they were attacked, and only 100 of them survived the attack, but those men fought hard enough that they saved Qumran. And what they saved was more than just a bunch of stones, walls and stuff. Qumran housed a treasury. When you walk into Qumran, the next time you go, you're going to have a totally different outlook on what this is.
And that's the thing, Jim. I've walked Qumran ever since I was 12, and year after year, just kind of going through. And I really didn't pay much attention to the ruins because I thought that was just, what they would tell you, the Essenes and all of that. You're right. When I go back there, I think I'm going to feel like shocks going through my body, walking on those same places, because now I know what is very likely below my feet.
Yeah, what's below your feet, and that you'll know when you walk up the steps on that big pyramid, half pyramid building there, you're stepping up on the treasury. In the Copper Scroll, they call it the House of Hakaz. Hakaz was one of the 24 priestly courses. Their job, each one of the priestly courses had their own job. Their job was treasury. They took care of the treasury. In the Bible, you see it. The name of Hakaz mentioned, and they're counting silver vessels, gold vessels. They're counting the wealth.
You and others will always say, I'm not a treasure hunter.
Right.
But this is a treasure. It is significant. It's not something you're out to seek wealth for yourself.
No.
You've stated that over and over. You want it for Israel. And that's what I love about what you're doing is we love Israel. We want to see Israel blessed. And actually, this might be part of end times prophecies.
Right.
We're talking about a lot, though. Tons of precious metals.
Tons of precious metals. Matter of fact, it says 900 talents of polished gold is at that location. Know exactly where it's at. And if it's still there, and I do believe it's still there, you know what your talent weighs? The common weight for it is 75 pounds. 900 times 75 times 14 ounces, which is troy ounces, of which, that's how they calculate the value of gold and silver. That's a lot of money. That is an enormous amount of money. But that money is, this is very important, that money, that gold, that silver, those gems are not for us to go spend and sell them at jewelry stores, God forbid. All these guys are thinking that the Copper Scroll, they must have brought all that gold from out of Jerusalem, and they went all over the country, hiding it. Yeah, what did they do, pack it in a U-Haul truck and take it? No, you're talking tons of gold. What I'm telling you is, the treasure was right there at Qumran, and after they were attacked, they took the gold, and you'll see the next time you go, it's a big pit, where they took all that gold, silver, and gems, and they buried it within the ruins of Qumran. And more importantly, at the cave, and I'm going to mention several times, that is about 390 yards away from Qumran. There, I absolutely believe there is a cave there that has been sealed and covered with dirt, so you couldn't find the entrance. That's where the majority of it went.
And what's the most significant thing in the cave, according to what you believe?
If you trust what 2 Maccabees says, and I do, 2 Maccabees says Jeremiah was on his way to Mount Nebo. And some people think he went to Mount Nebo and found a cave, but I absolutely don't think so. If you go straight from Jerusalem at the Golden Gate, the main gate, and you head towards Nebo, you could go right by Qumran, just have to make a little dip around because of the cliffs that are there. And you come around and you can be right there at Qumran on the way to Mount Nebo. That's the shortest route. Well, they could have taken, in 2 Maccabees it says that they took the altar of incense, table of showbread, the Ark of the Covenant, and the tabernacle of Moses. The tabernacle of Moses. Can you imagine? Well, they said that Jeremiah took this stuff and he put it inside of a cave and he sealed the entrance. Sealed the entrance. Well, as we were excavating in 2009, a piece of dirt fell away, which made the archaeologist panic. He started pushing people out of the way because he knew we were looking for a cave. And there was a void there, big void. And he thought, it really is here. Now, what am I going to do now? He covers it up. Well, I look at that and I tell it to him, I said, that doesn't look natural. He said, no, in his heavy, thick Israeli accent, this is natural. Well, baloney. I broke off a piece of it since it's natural. It took me a piece of it about this long, and they tested it, did a very elaborate report on it. His report came back, most probably man-made material.
What you would have just started to uncover was them blocking the cave and making it look like a natural stone.
Natural as possible. Well, it didn't look like stone. Look at all the caves next time you go. All of the caves have this kind of a gauntlet of stone, and then right at the pinnacle, there's an opening. Same thing. There's this gauntlet there, but at the pinnacle, it's now filled with dirt, and the dirt kind of just mounds and comes straight down.
And you started to dig in 2009.
Right at the peak of that,
At the peak, and it started to come down. So you were just maybe exposing where the opening would have been.
Would have been. Yeah, we didn't go near deep enough. 3 feet is not deep enough.
I mean, you're talking about the most important artifacts, of course, to Jewish people, but also to Christians.
Oh, to all of us, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would be of great significance. Of course, the Ark of the Covenant would be the one thing everyone would talk about, but what would you expect if you can locate all of these things, other than precious metals, precious stones, but what else would you find?
Artifacts. Artifacts from both the tabernacle and the temple. The very first location, it says, at the steps heading east, 40 cubits, dig at the steps, find 17 talents of silver service vessels, meaning they started off right there with silver service vessels, things that they used in the services for the tabernacle and the temple. Now, I can't say that which ones they are. They may be tabernacle, they may be temple service vessels. But a lot of it is the kelim, is what they call it, the vessels of the temple.
To notice the shape of Qumran is the shape of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And some of the places were the same as well. And how did you see that?
I was looking for a map of Jerusalem at the time of Jeremiah because I knew that that's where all this came from, and I just needed that for reference. I had no idea that it was going to match up like that. And actually, when I saw the map, I was online, I saw the map, I thought, why in the world did they draw Qumran upside down? I thought, now I know why they were so much like the priests. They built Qumran to be a mirror image, upside down image of Jerusalem in the wilderness. When I show this to a lot of people, they just get it. They go, that makes so much sense.
So you have Jerusalem, you have the Copper Scroll, and you have Qumran all intersecting.
Yeah.
And it just makes complete sense.
Yeah. Now you see why I believe that Qumran is Jerusalem in the wilderness. That's the home of the prophets. And I'm going to tell you something that might blow your socks off. That is the home of the Melchizedek order. That is where they came from. Now, I don't have time to explain that in one sitting, but I'm telling you, that's where they're at. The largest move in the Copper Scroll Project has just begun. The largest one. We've had some good movement along the years, but this is the most amazing.
So Dead Sea Scrolls started to be discovered in 47, 48, kind of pretty interesting story, accidental, at least the legend goes, of a shepherd, Bedouin shepherd, finding the scrolls.
Yeah, he finds the scrolls. It begins to build from there as the academics realize what they've found, what has been found, and then there's a cloak and dagger trying to buy this, trying to steal this, trying to get this, and eventually from 1947 to 1952 brings us to the Copper Scroll. It was found in a cave all on its own. And apparently the cave had collapsed and formed like a false wall, and nobody had ever seen the Copper Scroll behind it. Well, it was perched up on a shelf. And that's how they found it, and that's where it began with the Copper
Wasn't
Scroll.
it the last day of the French
It was the last
excavations?
day.
And it was almost just like an accident, but again, we don't think that was by accident.
No.
That was discovered. That was God's timing to say, okay, I'm not going to reveal what this is yet.
Right.
But, here's a pretty significant discovery. No other Dead Sea Scroll was written on metal.
No, it wasn't.
So this is pretty unique, and I think they realized it right away. Wow, this is interesting.
Yeah. Another interesting thing about the Copper Scroll itself, it was written on 3 sheets of copper. And they tried to rivet them together, but as they were rolling them up, one section of it broke off, and they couldn't keep it all together. But they still rolled it into one roll, and the scroll was written backwards. The boys that wrote that scroll had to write from left to right. And Hebrew, of course, goes from right to left to read it. Well, they had to write it backwards. Each letter had to be written backwards, and they had to write it in such a way when they flipped it over, the letters protruded from the map or from the scroll, and you could read it from right to left.
And the reasoning would be very difficult to do, and you could kind of see that in some of their work it seemed almost amateurish, but I mean, what could you or I do? And I think, didn't you try it a little bit
I did do it. Matter of fact, I brought my scroll with me today. When they wrote this scroll, they were in a big hurry, and the metal that they used was about twice as thick as this. And it was difficult doing this when I made this one, twice as thick. I thought, man, these guys, they had to have used a small hammer or a stone of some kind and a metal stylus as they tapped the letters in. And you'll see on here, or you can see on here, where they actually wrote the letter backwards, accidentally, I'm sure. Well, it's considerably larger than the handwriting on this one. You can actually see where it starts. This guy wrote to about right here,
Okay.
and then it starts getting tiny.
Okay.
And they wrote it from there. So this is not a typical document at Qumran. And they wanted it to last for a millennium. That pool is the one that the antiquities director, the rabbis, when they see this one, it is so distinct, it's so exacting that everybody just goes, okay, I get it. I mean, the first 3 are really interesting, but that one gets them every time. It says, at the double entry pool with the entrance at the north end of the community. Okay, so I looked for a double entry pool. There it was. This is the extreme, that point right there is the extreme north end of the community. With the entrance at the north edge of the community, here's the entrance right here where they'd come in, and I had to do some real, investigative research to figure out what this pool was. I saw the sign at Qumran that says mikvah for ritual bathing. Okay, there you go. So they even recognize what I'm telling you. They recognize that this is a ritual pool. Well, then back in the day, when they were still active, the guys at Qumran were still active, they'd go in, and it says this, 6 cubits toward the white immersion pool. This thing is white to this day. I mean, it's dirty white, but it's white, and you could tell it's white back then. They've recoated it with plaster. They know that back in the end, they would coat their mikvahs with.
They have to.
Yeah, they have to. Pool of oblation, meaning a pool of cleansing that goes down and to the left. But when you enter into this pool, you have to go down and to the left to get into it. It says, and it's high above the sea floor. Well, this lip of this mikvah sticks out of the ground about this far, higher than any other pool sticks out of the ground at Qumran. The rest of them just a few inches out of the ground. But this one is very much out of the ground. Not only that, but remember, this is in extreme north end. Well, all this water that comes in runs downhill. So this is the absolute highest geographically of all of Qumran. So everything is matching at this point. Dig 3 cubits for 40 silver talents. This wall right here is exactly 6 cubits long. All 10 of those points that they named on there match up exactly. And when we lifted fingerprints as a fire marshal, That's what you wanted. You wanted that fingerprint to match your fingerprint, their fingerprint, whoever it may be, because then you could get a conviction, or at least identify that they were in that spot at that time. So that one is the most identifiable of all the locations.
So you start with this one, you go through the progression of other ones, you get
Yeah.
to that one, and they're already paying attention now. They're leaning forward.
Oh, yeah.
And then that one is kind of sealing the deal.
That one nails it.
Yeah.
This location, right here's where they buried where I'm assuming they buried the 17 talents of silver vessels. Well, that's location number 1. Over here's location number 2. This is where the 900 talents of gold are buried. And then location is way out here, but those 3 are in a perfectly straight line. You can't imagine the cold chill that I got whenever I realized those guys were talking to me. Here's location number 46 in the building of gathering together at Zadok's residence. Zadok is not just the guy's name, that is the teacher of righteousness. And if you'll look right here, this room represents the teacher of righteousness. And it also represents, remember that Qumran-Jerusalem match? We call it the Qumran match. This location is the location of the temple. If you were to lay them on top of each other, this room would be the location of the temple. What better place for the teacher of righteousness but in the temple? But watch what happens. In the building of the gathering together at Zadok's residence, by the sheep are 2 crown stones of proud Boaz. Boaz, what are the 2 stones, the columns that stand outside of the temple? Boaz and Jachin. They even named the name of the column. Stood outside of the room of the teacher of righteousness. Show and loose 360 talents of accumulation of gold atonement vessels. Well, the sheep's pen is right here. Teacher of righteousness room right there. And it says that there are 2 capstones, column stones still there. Look, they're still there to this day. Saw them just the other day. And I believe that's where the teacher of righteousness would sit out and talk to the people. This is the only other courtyard that's at Qumran, and it's inside right there where the gathering together at the righteous one's room. So they would gather at this spot. And I promise you, triple promise you, John the Baptist was associated with these men. I have absolutely no doubt. And I will go as far as to say that Jesus was associated with these men. I'm telling you.
So this has been a while. Obviously, you got kind of excited about it.
Of course, yeah.
You decided to make your first journey to Israel.
Yeah, my wife and I grabbed backpacks. And I had just retired and money was not, abundant. So we dug into our savings, got some money out, and we headed for Jerusalem. Got there at the end of the day, go straight to the Western Wall, and we pray. And I thought that was the most popular place on the planet. There were satellite dishes, there were cameras everywhere, and I thought, wow, this place is popular. It's not it. There was a riot forming outside, and we had to get the heck out of there.
You stay in a less than ideal first hotel. Your first night in Israel wasn't so nice.
No, hostel.
And you're in the old city.
In the old city at the Jaffa Gate Hostel. Now,
your wife must be a wonderful woman, because my wife would have killed me at that moment.
She is incredibly patient, and she is very incredibly supportive of what I'm doing. She knows how important it is to me and to, if I'm right, to the rest of the world. So she's very supportive. Yeah, it was not a nice place to sleep.
You go from the city of Jerusalem to Qumran. And did it verify, were you able to verify, or even more so, what you had already been studying with charts?
I had figured out by that point about 20 of the locations. And every one of them that I had found matched the buildings, it matched the features of the buildings, it matched incredibly well. So yes, it confirmed a lot.
Take us through the process now of getting other people to listen to you, especially the Israeli Antiquity Authority and those that control there in Qumran.
The morning that I made the discovery, I finished the first 5, and I know how to understand this thing. Now we just got to go through every bit of it. I put my head, and I've told this story a dozen times, I laid my head on my desk and I prayed and I said, God, how do you expect me to get the Antiquities Authority of Israel to listen to a fireman from Oklahoma? That's what I said. The little Comanche lady from the college where I was teaching investigative report writing got me in touch with the Director General of the entire Antiquities Authority of Israel.
Which no one usually can get
No.
access to someone like that.
No, he came and picked me up at my little tiny Jerusalem hotel. We moved out of the hostel into a little hotel.
You upgraded.
Yeah, we upgraded big time. And he took me to the Citadel Hotel, where his son was a manager. We had a big room provided for us, overlooking the city. They opened the double doors, and I could look out from where we were sitting. I could see the old city right from there. And I started showing my research to him.
So as you're starting to show people this, and you're obviously keeping it tight to the vest in many ways.
Very much so.
What are people's reactions when you first start explaining this to people?
When first rabbi that I met, first antiquities person that I met, first archaeologist I met, every single time, first rabbi, assistant I met, everybody, they go, right, you figured out the cover
So
scroll.
they kind of start leaning back with their arms crossed,
very
and just kind
much
of looking at you skeptically.
Exactly.
And I'll just confess that's how I was when I first heard this too.
Sure.
So-
Yeah. Everyone says.
So
that.
then, what happens?
Let me give you a little image of what happened. Showing it to the first rabbi, I began to show him my research, and he's sitting about as far away as you are. And I had on a small desk, I got my research, and I opened it up to him. And after I read it to him, he started unfolding his arms. Then the second one, he starts leaning forward. Third one, he's really leaning forward, and the fourth one, that's when he gets up out of his chair, walks around to me, pulls me up out of my chair and kisses me on both cheeks. I was being validated for my research. And he said to me, you know what this means to my people? And I told him, yes, it means the same thing to my people. I took my research in to Shuka Dorfman. And Shuka introduced me to Yuval Peleg and Yitzhak Magen, that two guys over what is commonly called the West Bank. I like to call it Judea Samaria. He introduced me to him, had a meeting specifically for me at the Rockefeller Museum in his office. And those guys, the younger guy, Yuval Peleg, was on fire. The older guy wanted to throw rocks at me. But the younger guy, Yuval, looked at Shuka Dorfman. He said, I think this guy's done it. And Shuka said to him, tell me. He said, no, not yet. I want to see more. So that's how it started. We actually did an excavation in April of 2009.
Well, that's the thing, and that's another question a lot of people are asking is, you've had so many excavations at Qumran and no one's ever even accidentally stumbled upon it. You've done the dig in, was it 2009?
Yeah.
And didn't come on anything. But it's a very simple answer. No one's ever dug below virgin soil. Is that correct?
Yes. Copper Scroll says 7 cubits for the majority of them. 7 cubits equates to about 12 feet. So yeah, we got to go way down deep to be able to find them. They buried some of it in and around the ruins of Qumran, or a lot of it, but the vessels, I bet, are inside of a cave. And that cave is about 390 meters, something like that, from the very northern end
And
of
it's
Qumran.
hidden up till this point. You
Yeah.
believe you know where it is, but without permission to go deeper, you haven't found the opening of that cave.
In 2009 with Yuval Peleg, we actually started at that point. But as we were digging, he asked me, how deep do you want to go? I said, as deep as you'll go. He said, well, how about 2 meters? I'm going, yeah, 2 meters is good. I'm in it there.
You're there, at least get something
I'm
done,
at their
right?
mercy.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, let's do that. So we started digging. We got about this deep, and he gets a phone call. After that phone call, we had to stop.
Wow.
We dug a little bit more in the ruins, just kind of a cursory, and we had agreed to 5 locations. We dug at 3, and one location we only went this deep. Remember, 12 cubits, or 7 cubits. That's not
Right.
7 cubits.
Right.
Well, that's when I realized something had happened. Somebody had called, somebody had complained, and I believe we're absolutely correct. There's a lot of people, and I believe there's pressure from the United States that made us stop. Now that frustrated, makes me angry because, what did I do to those guys? You know what I think it was? I got a little better than a high school education. They got PhDs, and they're thinking, if that guy finds this, not going to be good for our careers. And you know what? I've got nothing against them. I went to them and said, hey, oh no, they didn't want anything to do with me. Because they thought, well, we have the degrees, we have the right to dig there, you don't. Well, you know what? God doesn't care about your degrees. He's not a respecter of persons. He wants your heart. And my heart is to help Israel, because if I help Israel, it's going to help us. Some Jewish people asked me to go to New York to meet a guy named Moshe Feiglin. Moshe was doing a fundraiser, and they wanted me just to talk to him and then show to him my research. I said, okay, I can do that. Well, we sat down at this table in a home, and I projected up on the wall. I began to show him my research. Well, he wasn't paying attention. That aggravated me. So I slapped the table and I said, hey, Moshe, you need to pay attention. This is important stuff. And he kind of like, what? Who is this kid? So anyway, he starts paying attention. Within a few minutes, he is going, why are you not digging? Why is this? I said, because your government won't let me. He said, what? I said, yes. He said, they're not letting you. I said, no. And I said, all I want to do right now is scan it, test it, see if those items are there, because that's a precious place. You don't want to go digging holes and just check. And he said, when are you going back? I said, in about 1 month. He said, I'll meet you there. I'm the deputy speaker of the Knesset. I have diplomatic immunity. I'll scan it. And my toenails curled. I said, okay. I told him, I said, look, that's really illegal for me to do. He said, I'm a Knesset member.
He has diplomatic immunity.
He's got diplomatic, not me.
But you went on faith.
Yeah, we did. We went out there, me and Chris Knight and the guys, and we scanned Qumran. He operated the machine. It was under his authority, under his control. We scanned it, and buddy, we scanned 4 locations, and they came back with amazing amounts of signals for non-ferrous metal.
It went fast. I can tell you, I felt like we went in, we did all these scans, and then we were done.
Kind of like Navy SEALs. You all knew what you were going to do.
Because everything gets euphoric. You're in that moment. It's like, is this really happening? And I do remember going up on the hill where the cave is at. And to me, that was awesome that we were even there able to scan. And I remember thinking when we left, I was like, oh man, if we actually got some hits at the cave, because that's the big spot. If anything is out there, the cave will be the hot spot. And that cave could hold not just the ark, but it could be the cave of kings, meaning that they stored the spoils of war in there. So you could have the tabernacle, you could have the massive wealth, you could have everything that this copper scroll talks about, but you could have a lot more. It could be the biggest archaeological find ever.
Wouldn't that be the place, though, that they would just do the test? Go ahead and do the full test up to where Jim says, okay, we've exhausted all of it, because you're not disturbing an archaeological ruin. And when you were scanning, you were doing this covertly, kind of. You didn't know what the results were.
No,
you were just
I had no
collecting
idea.
data onto a card or tip or something.
Had no idea until we got to En-Gedi what we were going to get. And boy, was I relieved when I saw that thing light up. That area, this room right here, which was a dining facility. And it was actually, it's called on the Copper Scroll, the Room of the Women, because the way it talks about it, they would feed the poor, the children, the widows. That was a biblical commandment. So they did that all the time. Mm-hmm. And the last one, of course, the 4th one, is way out here.
And you did scan the cave.
And we scanned the cave, and oh my goodness, so much. I showed the results of the scan to the guy that built that metal detector, and he was begging me to tell him where that spot was at. I showed him that one spot, and he said, no, come on, Mr. Barber, please. You got to tell me. I said, no, sorry, bud. I'm not going to tell you.
So then the question is it still there?
Yep. If the scans were correct, if there was no anomalies, Yeah. there's
And you
still-
would expect, though, if somebody found all this, we would have known about that. I mean, it's not
Oh,
something
yeah.
small that would just, somebody's spirit's this way.
Yeah.
No, that would be somehow known somewhere.
Right.
Somebody's going to tell somebody. That was ever
And you
discovered.
have to realize that cave hasn't been touched. So if there really is a cave there, if, that means the most precious items is still intact. And the most gold, silver, and gems are still intact.
Take out the temple items. Let's just say gold and silver and precious stones in one cache. Has it ever been found anything like this?
The Atosha had a tremendous amount of gold, but it was one ship, and
Yeah.
no, the Qumran will sink that ship in a heartbeat.
That's what I was thinking. Is
Yeah.
there's nothing else like this ever?
Yeah,
ever-
King
ever been
Tut's
found.
tomb, nothing compared to this. I mean, they had more artifacts. It's nothing compared to what's going to come out of that cave. That's just going to be it's going to be a world changer.
How do you see this discovery impact that rebuilding of the Jewish temple?
The rabbi said it will be a revival in Israel like they have never seen. And I absolutely believe that. It will be a revival because now they've got something tangible. They haven't got anything from the interior of the temple, the interior walls, as far as I can tell, of the Temple Mount. This will be incredibly tangible. They got it in their hands and they can say, look, everybody, it's really, truly here. And then the whole world will light up. Christians and Jews alike will be elated because they know that the time is near. Is there a possibility for some difficult times? Yes, there is. And I have no way around that.
You know, we look at Israel in the past, we're saddened by the sins of Israel, but, you know, for me, I have a real heart for Israel, and it's really grown over the years, going back and forth, and the deeper I get into Scripture, the more it's about Israel. Israel, you just can't get away from it.
Israel has always been important to me as I was growing up and, you know, studying about it. And I mourn for those that don't see the significance of Israel or say, well, God has cast them aside.
Right.
Well, Romans 9:10 and 11 tells us that God isn't done
No.
with them and has given them unconditional promises.
Yes.
We do
Yes.
see a future, and we do see Jesus ruling on the throne of David in Jerusalem.
If these items are there, just the items listed on the copper scroll, that alone is going to begin a process of the end times, you know, and I don't think all of us are fully aware how this is going to unfold. I don't think we have a full picture. If the ark is there, even though the ark is not mentioned on the copper scroll, when you look at the historical documents around what describes the scroll, there's a high potential that the ark's there. That alone is a marker. If that thing comes out, you might as well just mark your calendar and say, this is it.
But it has to happen exactly at the moment when God says now. That's whenever the first item will come out of the ground or the first glimpse of what we hope is the cave will happen. But it's not going to happen until God says it's time.
Well, this is where we need to end our program today, but before we go, let me encourage you. The most important thing for you, yeah, this is all exciting. The copper scroll, temple treasure, gold and silver. There's nothing more important than knowing for sure that you're on your way to heaven. Have you ever received that free gift of eternal life? Have you ever drank of the living water? Jesus said he is the living water. He said, I am the door. You have to go through the door, Jesus, to be saved from hell to heaven. You must trust in the Lord Jesus Christ as your only hope. He died on a cross, he rose again, and by believing in him, the Bible says we pass from death to life. Yeah, these treasures are incredible and they're wonderful and exciting, but more important is the treasure that we have in Jesus. By trusting in him, that he died and rose again for us, by trusting in him, we will have eternal life. John 3:16 says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever, that's you and me, believeth in him, that's to trust in him, not by works, but by believing in him, should not perish, which is hell, but have everlasting life, which is heaven. My friend, that is the good news. Believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, and thou shalt be saved.
On the next episode of The Copper Scroll, Jim Scudder Jr. and Shelley Neese travel to Qumran, Israel, to find buried treasure.
The idea, too, that this would have been a known site for the treasury at Qumran and that they would have taken things out of the treasury, hid them at Qumran, hid them at the cave, and then documented it later on a copper scroll, doesn't seem like the biggest leap of logic. That seems like a narrative that could have easily taken place.
Okay, isn't that fascinating? I think this advanced metal detector, that they could go there and they could find that there's definitely metals and things there. I mean, it's kind of cool. It's like he says, he gets chills when he thinks about that. But when are they going to actually dig this stuff up? I'm sure there's a lot of politics behind all this, and so maybe it'll be something to do with when they're ready for the temple. I don't know, but it's going to be amazing when they see that. So, okay, I got the question here. Coincident, a chance occurrence of events remarkably either for being simultaneously or for apparently being connected. At what point do you change your thinking from possible coincidence to a planned occurrence? And we all see coincidences all the time, right, Jason? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's really no coincidences, but there are things that you see that are statistically important that you'd say can't be just a coincidence. There's something behind this, some design, and I think that's what they see here. So I think that's pretty cool. He mentioned that. Anybody else on that, or?
Usually for me, it's when you have hindsight. You know, this happens, and you go through it, and you can look back and say that couldn't have been a coincidence because of how everything turned out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, like, even with this church, Chris and I have seen some things that were pretty amazing at how God moved us and through all this. So it's like, you know, step by faith.
The nice part on that is when you've seen so much of it, you learn that there is no such thing as coincidence. And you start to see things as planned in real time, except hindsight.
Yeah. But I mean, something this significant, it's obviously there's something here that is more than just finding something. It looks like it's been a plan and design behind it. I mean, God made this preserved copper scroll for 2,000 years to find it now, and it gives you the actual map of this area and what's going on. So one thing he said, many times the correct answer is the simplest answer. When I worked at SIA, sometimes you try to find what's the cause of a defect in a vehicle, and we go back to the suppliers, and when it always ended up being something that was simple, and you're racking your brain out. But I think that's kind of what he was saying here, that Jim Barfield, you know, the simplest answer is the true one. You know, when he went and analyzed his map, all these Jewish rabbis and so, with all their doctor's degrees and so on, analyzing this, and it's too complicated, and they make it too complicated. He just went and followed it step by step. And I think that's why we look at the Bible too, right? Take the Bible for what it says. Don't make it overly complicated. So, anybody on that?
Well, I think a lot of times we try to lean on our own understanding.
Yeah, this is the Proverbs, you're right. We try to think we have the answer, that we can figure things out. Okay. Second Maccabees is an apocryphal book. It's what they call a pseudepigrapha. It's in the Catholic Bible. I don't know if you remember that, Tony. Of course, you never used the Bible in the Catholic Church, so. But it's actually in the Catholic Bible. It's an apocryphal book written somewhere around 125 BC. Could there be some truths in this book?
Oh, yeah.
You know, obviously, right? I mean, it doesn't mean it's inspired by God, but Jason,
Doesn't
go ahead.
Jesus make reference to it?
Huh?
Doesn't Jesus make reference to it? Because it talks about the Feast of Dedication, yeah.
Yeah. So that it may not be an inspired book. It does not necessarily belong in the scriptures of the Bible, but there's some historical truths in it. It's just like Josephus wrote a lot of history, and a lot of what he says, we can say, hey, it helps to fill in some of the blanks. But that's what he was looking at and analyzing what he found out with this.
Yeah. Jesus celebrated Hanukkah.
Okay. There appears to be a resemblance of Jerusalem and the Qumran. Anybody think that was kind of weird?
Yes.
Could this be pure coincidence?
No.
No. Look at this. Oops. I mean, look at that. It's weird, isn't it, that they made a replica of Jerusalem up there by Qumran. The layout and everything looks very similar. To me, that blows me away. That's fascinating. So, there's something going on here, and when they're gonna end up doing this, will it be after the rapture, before, I don't know, but this is kinda cool. Now, you wonder if they don't want to dig this stuff up now, maybe because it's something to do with antiquities, that they don't wanna do anything to this place, but at some point in time, I think they will. And if they do dig it up and find this stuff that's in the temple, it may cause an uprising with the people that are in the Dome of the Rock, right? The Islam. Because they may think, okay, you guys think you're gonna go build your temple now. I don't know. But anyways, why would the people Jim Barfield talked to at first not believe he is credible?
Pride.
Pride, and he wasn't one of theirs. What's that, Cherry?
Because they didn't have the fancy piece of paper saying.
Fancy piece of paper, and they thought, who is this guy that went there and figured this out? And it's, you know, look at, he doesn't fit in with our clique, our crowd. So, but it's, what this guy did looked pretty amazing, just to see and everything that he put his time and effort into. And he uses his investigative skills when he analyzed, you know, what started a fire and caused a fire, so. And there's some guys that can figure stuff out pretty good. He just had that ability and skill. He was like a bulldog, they said. So the last question I have here, the finding of the temple artifacts will cause a revival in Israel. What will that lead to? If they find that, they start pulling up the Ark of the Covenant and some of this other stuff, what people gonna say? Like we talked earlier, it could be what causes in Ezekiel 38 for the Russia to go down there and seek for the gold and so on, but I think it'll cause a lot of other stuff too for people to see. I mean, I think it's fascinating that just the last couple of weeks we've had a lot of visitors in church. Does that really have anything to do with Charlie Kirk? I don't know, but it's interesting. But this happens, I think it's going to blow the world away. They're going to really be amazed by it. Jason.
You're assuming that the temple artifacts will be allowed to be found?
What do you mean allowed to be found?
Well, there's a lot of stuff that we dig up that places like the Smithsonian come in and destroy. Like every evidence for giant bones, Smithsonian destroys them.
Because they don't want to have the proof?
It violates the Bible.
Yeah.
We can't have that.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Israel and the rabbis believe the Bible, but they believe the Old Testament, not the New Testament. So to them, this is a finding that I think will validate. It's hard to say.
It's still under the international.
Maybe, I don't know.
So if you dig it up, no country can lay claim to that. Yeah, I think they brought that up in the last one.
Yeah, so if they do find it, it is going to be pretty amazing.
Israel needs to have autonomy over the area before they're allowed to.
And that's, yeah,
claim it
then
as their own.
that's, I think they right now will not allow anybody else to take that control. I think they're going to take it. So that's what I have for this.